Plants vs Zombies 2 is known for being a pretty easy game, especially right now having absolutely overpowered plants like you. However, there are also ways to make the game harder, like the insane amount of challenge people already did or playing different mods. And here's where the fun really begins. Let me introduce you to probably the hardest PvZ2 mod ever created, Plants vs Zombies 2 Vex Edition. You know this mod is pretty brutal when the tutorial, yes, the first 5 tutorial levels took me around 1 hour to complete. Only the tutorial. This will be fun for sure. The first level is a really easy one. You have one row, one type of zombie and one type of plant, so it shouldn't be that hard, right? Come on, you already know what the answer is. I already lost and it's the first level, so how can I beat this? The first thing I tried was waiting for sun to fall because in the tutorial, zombies don't start appearing until you plant your second pea shooter, so I wanted to try to collect as much sun as possible before planting anything. However, after waiting a little bit, it didn't look like I would get anything. So yeah, basically the level was RNG. It wasn't until my third attempt that I got to beat the final zombie and unlock sunflower. Level 2 was also interesting. Here it introduced you to sunflowers and the level itself doesn't start until you plant exactly 3 sunflowers. What does this mean? Even though in the last level I couldn't get any extra sun to plant more pea shooters, here is different. So the idea was simple, waiting for sun, collecting it, and then planting pea shooters in the lawn. At first, I tried planting 2 columns of pea shooters because I thought it was enough, but oh boy, I was so wrong. Everything went pretty bad already, but at the final wave, a lot of conehead zombies spawned when I was already cooked, so I lost again. This second try, I went more insane planting pea shooters in all the available tiles I had, but even if this looked better, at the end of the vlog, too many coneheads were appearing and my defense was getting worse and worse, and I ended up losing. So what was the solution? Well, basically planting 2 sunflowers in the last column and filling all the other tiles with pea shooters, and then planting another sunflower to start zombies appearing. After finally beating the last zombie, I unlocked Walnut. Speaking of which, Walnut got a buff, now having quite more health, being even more useful to stall zombies, and you will see how important this plant is later on the video. Anyway, in case you didn't see already, there is no sign of any lawnmower in any of the levels I played so far, and you will see how this is very common because yes, if the mod itself wasn't hard enough, most of the levels don't even have lawnmowers. So day 3 started with a pre-planted walnut and 2 bucket heads in that lane right away. My strategy here was basically planting 2 columns of pea shooters while stalling the most time I could with walnut. This wasn't extremely bad until almost the final wave. It was pretty clear I needed more DPS if I wanted to defeat all these zombies without problem. On the second try, I was planting 3 pea shooters per lane, but I couldn't even reach the final flag because of the fast spam of zombies and low sun I had. This took me a few tries until I realized I could just spam a lot of sunflowers everywhere, and that was kinda what I ended up doing. I almost lost on the final flag because of a zombie in the third row, but this pea shooter managed to take him out. Plus the insane stalling from the walnuts in the second row helped me finish the level and unlock Potato Mine. Level 4 starts strong with the first wave being brickhead and conehead zombies. Luckily, with our new plant Potato Mine, which now costs 50 sun, I could deal with him easily. In fact, most of the level wasn't really that hard, which is not easy to say in this mod. With the new powerful walnut, I managed to stall most of the zombies at time and put a potato mine to defeat them. Obviously, you want to try and get as many as possible in one single tile to a potato mine really be effective. Anyway, I almost lost in the final wave by a bucket head and brick head, but I got to plant a walnut and a potato mine just to win this level in my first attempt and unlock Cabbage Bolt. And if you think this was easy, wait until you see the next level, because this is level 5, and with Cabbage Bolt, of course, they needed to add gravestones, and not a few. Cabbage Bolt got new stats here, now being a 150 sun plant but with significantly increased damage, now defeating basic zombies with only 4 shots. Now, here is the thing. Since I used Cabbage Bolts in the first column, I couldn't break all gravestones in lawn, because you know, they target zombies first. But even though I had that problem, everything was looking pretty good. I was stalling, dealing great damage, and Yeah, of course, not everything is good. In the final wave of this level, a new zombie spawned in every single gravestone, and not exactly weak zombies. Of course, there were too many zombies to handle and I ended up losing. And this will be the first of many fails, because to complete this level I had to spend over 30 minutes, half an hour, for a single tutorial level. So what's the strategy here? Well, it has to do with this single coin this bucket zombie drops. Since it's the first coin of the game, the waves actually stops coming until you pick this coin. What does this mean? Well, no, it's not just killing him and then not picking the coin, because in this case sunflowers doesn't produce any sun, nor sun drops from sky. So I had to stall the zombie with walnuts, and since the recharge has not changed as far as I know, I didn't really have much problem. However, even with 4 entire columns of cabbage pult, I just couldn't defeat all zombies, because you see this column of walnuts I had here? Well, now it's gone, because of course the gravestones destroyed all my main defense, so that was another fail to the list. What I actually had to do here is plant the walnuts exactly in the 6 columns, and with this very beautiful lawn, now I can pick the coin. And with this single change, I won the level without even worrying about my attackers. If you think this was easy even for a tutorial, don't worry, because things will get a lot worse. So to go in the next world, I picked the hot sauce, you press the subscribe button, and let's continue to Ancient Egypt. First level of Ancient Egypt, and you can already see how the creators of this mod loves gravestones. With this lawn almost full of them, the best thing I can do is stalling as much as I can rat zombies, which you will see how useful this can be. Second wave, and already a buckethead zombie in route 2, which is definitely not good if you have in mind I already used potato mine 2 times, and it wasn't even ready to plant it again. I also started planting pea shooters since this was my only way of destroying the gravestones. I realized this too late though, because the zombies were all basically in my house, losing this first attempt. And man, this single level took me around 40 minutes to beat, attempt after attempt, losing again and again after I started cooking a little bit more. Basically what I needed to do is use pea shooters to clean the maximum amount of gravestones before the level spams me a lot of zombies. Then using cabbage pult to clean especially the weaker zombies, and then stalling with walnuts to gather as many zombies as possible, to finally use a potato mine and defeat all of them. Even with this, I still struggled a lot, and I even had to use a power-up to deal with some of the zombies in the flag. I also used the only plant food I got in this level, in cabbage pult, to clean most zombies in the bottom row. Also, one interesting change in this mod is that pea shooter plant food now shoots peas in his and adjacent lanes. Pretty interesting, even if it wasn't really useful. With this, I beat the first level of the first world. Man. Level 2 already introduces another zombie, camel zombie, which will be for sure a problem, especially when you know I still didn't unlock Bloomerang. So the first thing I did was plant a pea shooter in the bottom row. Since you see these 2 really close gravestones in the top and bottom lane, well, we of course don't want them. In the second wave, 3 bucket heads spawned in the same row, so placing a walnut to stall them while planting as many sunflowers as I could was the right move here. Generally, this level was a mix between planting pea shooters for gravestones and cabbage pult for more DPS needed for the zombies. Everything went pretty well until the final flag started, because there were too many strong zombies for my plans to defeat all of them, so I ended up losing at the final wave. However, even if you thought this level would be easy, you're wrong. It took me almost a full hour of attempts to beat it, since the zombie spawns are very structured and there's basically no RNG. I had to place most of my plants, especially in the early waves, in the exact same spots and with perfect timing. Otherwise, I was cooked. After all these attempts though, I managed to beat it with a bit of luck and timing. Also, in case you're wondering how I got that much money, well, every single gem equals 1000 coins, which is a really generous amount, and since I was already playing for about 3 hours, I managed to get a good amount of gems to spend on this. I could also save these gems and maybe buy some of the special plants, but to be honest, I don't think they would be that effective, so yeah, give me the coins. Anyway, speaking about the level after beating it, I got Bloomerang, a plant that will be super useful in the next level, as you will see. Now, on the third level, it already has an objective of not planting in Dave's mold colonies, and it introduced yet another zombie, the Explorers. Not only that, but it's also a 2 flag level, so it will be even harder to keep it up. So how did it go? Well, the first try wasn't so good, because there wasn't much space to plant. I was kinda limited in the sun production, especially when zombies started coming at a higher speed. So even though a plant food on a cabbage pult saved me from losing in the first first flag, I just didn't have enough damage to deal with this conehead, so I decided to just restart the level before even seeing the game over screen. My idea here was to plant bloomerangs in the first column, but before that I needed to deal with some of the first zombies with potato mine. And even if I had some difficulties, I still managed to beat it. 1/4 was and probably will be the easiest level in the entire mod. It's a night level, but since it's also a conveyor, it doesn't really mean much. The main gimmick, I suppose, is the fact that we can plant in the first column, but even with this in mind, all of the level was easy. Also, in case you didn't see, I even had lawnmowers in this level. Funny, when it's as I said, probably the easiest one. So I got iceberg lettuce and let's continue to the next one. Level 5 introduces a bunch of stuff like sandstorms and imps, so this level was quite hard. Something important here is to stall the imps as much as you can, because otherwise it will start coming waves much faster and we don't want that for sure. And iceberg lettuce is perfect for that, especially if we need to put out the fire explorers have. I lost one time, but after that I started to cook a little bit more. Again, it's super important to stall as much as you can the first waves to get as many sunflowers. Also, another quite interesting thing is that at the first flag of the level, a portal will open, spawning a lot of zombies in the bottom lane, so I had to keep that in mind and have 2 bloomerangs ready. And yeah, I reached the final wave with quite a lot of zombies. I needed to use another power-up. Look, I know it's kinda lame to do that, but if the devs put it available, it is for something, right? Now for 1/6, things were getting extremely complicated. So the objective in this level is defeating the zombies before they walk past these flowers, and this gets absurd when the little first zombie you have to defeat is a rust zombie on the top lane, where you have all the tiles to the right covered with gravestones. So you will have to play with him and your son as much time as you can, but also watch out because the next wave is a basic zombie on the bottom lane, with the exact same situation or even worse because we can't stall him, so it's time to play our cards well here. This single level took me around 1 hour to complete, and it's level 6 of this first world. The thing I started realizing in this mod is that it's all pretty much scripted. Especially in the first waves, you have to put the plants in the exact same tiles the game wants you to do it. Take this as an example. At the start of the level, you have to stall this rat zombie, plant the first cabbage plant in the last lane, and also before that you need to place an iceberg here and another one there, and then you have to already have placed a walnut in the middle lane. I had to do this exact same thing over and over again every single time I tried this level. This can kinda get boring. Also, it's necessary to be able to plant food your iceberg lettuce right at the start of the last flag, because otherwise you will instantly die by an explorer. Anyway, after all these attempts and a power-up, I managed to complete it. In level 7, I had to deal with a new objective, this being destroying all the gravestones before the final wave. But you may be wondering, how many gravestones are in this level? Well, quite a bit. So again, this was a really hard level, easily the harder one in this video. Why? Well, it took me around 2 entire hours to beat this single level. You need to have good timing in a lot of things. The main strategy here is slowly removing the gravestones as you need. Also, you have to keep in mind to use Gravebuster as much as you can, especially when you already have an established defense, because it's usual to just forget to use it. As well as placing potato mines strategically to take down as many zombies as possible. If you have both good luck and play good enough, you will be able to beat this level. And that's what I finally did after a long number of attempts. Now in level 8, I have to protect this pea shooter from the coming waves. You will see how this level specifically throws you explorer zombies in this row, so I needed to have this in mind to save iceberg lettuce just for these zombies. Not only that, but I also had to place Gravebuster as the level wants to, due to the lawn being basically filled with gravestones. Also, easily one of the best plant foods right now is the iceberg lettuce, because well, freezing all zombies on the screen is especially good here, and you will see how great this can be. Using this plant food in big waves is even better, because with the amount of explorers the game throws at us is really the best. So with a power of about 2 columns of bloomerangs, some power-ups and good timed potato mines, I got to beat this level after a pretty big amount of attempts. And dude, this upcoming level was absolute hell. In 1/9 I had to survive using only the specific plants the game gave me, without planting on Dave's mold colonies, and while also filling an entire horizontal row with plants. And trust me, that's way harder than it sounds, especially because of Cleopatra. This zombie spawns 4 basic zombies, kinda like the disco zombie. but man, when your only attacker is Bonchoy, things get out of control really fast. Now, speaking of Bonchoy, it actually got a pretty big buff. It deals more damage, has more range and more HP. Sounds amazing, right? And yeah, it is, but there is a catch. It now costs 250 sun. So how did that work? Well, the first attempt was, as expected, a complete disaster. One of the main problems is that Cleopatra keeps spawning zombies even while she's eating, and that makes everything 10 times worse, because the waves just keep stacking faster and faster. At that point, it basically comes down to luck. You need Bonchoy to prioritize attacking Cleopatra instead of the other zombies, because if it doesn't, you are absolutely cooked. And this was me trying over and over again until I finally got something functional. And I know I used a lot of power-ups already, but look, I'm not a pro player and I don't really want to spend 5 entire hours for a single level, so forgive me please. Anyway, after beating this level, I unlocked Bonchoy, so let's go to level 10. Finally, we reached level 10, the final level of this video, so it will be easy, hard, or...
Surprise, motherfucker!
Okay, so this is 1/10, a level where I have to prevent zombies from stepping on the flowers, basically the same as in level 6. It's important to know though that when the flowers are exactly in the center of the tile, you can actually plant there to prevent zombies from triggering the flowers. So yeah, to pass through this is obligatory to plant a sunflower right here. In fact, the best plant to put there is Bonchoy for sure. With its new range and powerful attacks, it can actually deal with most of zombies in the waves. And you know, yeah, it was actually not that hard. This was probably one of the only levels I managed to beat it without using a single power-up. Yay! Well, basically to beat this level, I needed to plant 2 columns of Bonchoys to deal almost all DPS, while also having 1 column of boomerangs to support. Almost at the end though, the level throws you a bunch of bucket heads on the sandstorms, which can actually be pretty problematic if you don't have already enough Bonchoys in column 4. And with all of this, I can beat level 10. There are still a lot of levels to complete, a lot of different challenges to beat, and much more. This is definitely the hardest PvZ2 mod I ever played, and I'm sure it will only get worse from here. So if you wanna check out the next parts, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what you think. See ya!